let's make chicken biryani together. First, you want to cut your onion. I'm using 6 onions and I'm slicing them like this. It doesn't need to be too thin because you're going to cook it anyways. I'm using a mix of medium and small onions. Wash your onions and leave it aside. Next, get a handy and add some oil. I'm adding about 2 big tablespoons of oil. And to that hot oil, add in half a teaspoon of cumin seeds, a couple of bay leaves, 1 cinnamon stick, between 4 or 5 cardamom, 5 black peppers, and about 4 or 5 cloves. I let it fry in the onions for about 1 minute and I give it a stir by shaking the pot like this. And then I'm adding my onions. I kept about 1 handful of onions aside, and that's to fry later. To my handy, I'm adding 1.5 teaspoon of salt. Give it a good mix and then put the lid on and let it cook. Onions release a lot of moisture, and that's why I have the heat on high. After about 5-10 minutes, I've noticed that the onions have dried up a little bit, so I'm just adding a little bit of water. This is just to let it cook without burning it. And you can also see that the onions have changed color. Now, whilst our onions are cooking, we're just going to prep our rice. I'm using Cella rice, and I'm using it from the brand Layla. I've tried so many different types of rice, and I find this one gives the best results. So I'm adding 3 cups of rice to my sieve. I don't know if anyone else does this, but I always add like a little bit extra, like a handful extra, just in case some of it goes to waste when I'm cleaning it. Now, I put it in a sieve because I find this is the best way to wash rice. I put my sieve on top of a bowl, and you'll notice that first wash it that the water is very mucky in color. Gradually, as you continue washing your rice, you'll notice that the water becomes a bit more clear. It doesn't necessarily have to become pure water-like, just as long as it's not so. After washing my rice, I left it to soak in the bowl of water for about 30 minutes. To my onions, I added 4 ginger and garlic paste. You can use fresh if you want to, but this is just an easy chicken biryani dish. This only takes a few minutes to cook, and once it's cooked and combined well with the onions, we can add in our tomatoes. I'm using chopped tin tomatoes. And of course, you can use fresh tomatoes, and if you are, use about 5 or 6. I just find that the tin tomatoes cook quicker than normal fresh tomatoes. Give it a good mix and then put the lid on. After a few minutes, you'll notice that the oil starts to separate. This was tricky for me to learn at first, but what this means is, as you can see I'm moving it, you see that the oil is just there. And that means we are ready to add in our spices. Now, I'm adding 1.5 teaspoon of chili powder. Add more if you want a bit more spicy, but this was enough. And I'm also adding 1 teaspoon of cumin powder and 1 teaspoon of coriander powder. Give all that a good mix. Now for the biryani masala, I'm using the brand Shan. It just says biryani on the box. I have used Laziza, the Sindhi biryani, the Bombay biryani. Honestly, any is fine. So at first, I'm just adding a little bit into the spice mixture. I'm just going to give it a good mix and I'm going to let it fry off for a few minutes. Now I've already cut and washed my chicken breast, and I'm using 2 chicken breasts. I've cut them into medium sizes, and after adding it to my handy, I'm going to give it a good mix, and I'm going to add the remaining packet of the Shan biryani mix. Combine it all together, make sure that the chicken is covered in that sauce, and I've got the heat on high. Now, if you have the heat on high, you want to keep an eye on it to make sure it doesn't burn. I'm not adding water at this stage because chicken does release a bit of water. So I'm just going to keep it on high flame, and I'm going to put the lid on the handy. And I'll keep it on high for about 5 to 6 minutes. After a few minutes, I'm going to check my chicken mixture, and I'll see that the sauce has dried up a little bit. So I'm going to add water to it. Optional as well, you can add some green chilies. I've added 3. I've also added 1 cup of water. Stir it, put the lid back on, and keep it on medium to high flame. Once I finish with that, I'm going to get another handy, and I boiled some hot water in the kettle, and I'm just adding that hot water to the handy. My kettle I think is about 1.2 litres, and I'm going to use 2 kettleful of water, about 2 litres of water. And once that water is boiled, I'm going to add in half a teaspoon of cumin seeds and a pinch of salt. You'll know your water is ready when it starts to bubble. And when it does that, you want to add in your rice. Now this is important. Keep your rice on boil for 12 minutes. Timer on, 12 minutes is all you need. Now to my chicken mixture, I'm adding potatoes. This is just baking potatoes, but any potatoes you want is fine. I just find that I can manipulate the sizes with baking potatoes. I've kept them to a medium size. Let your potatoes cook for a bit and then add in your garnish. So I'm adding coriander, and I added a handful of coriander. Now put the lid on and let it simmer. Now after 12 minutes, your rice should be ready. It's not going to be cooked all the way through, but it's ready. So once your timer goes off, what you want to do is get a sieve and drain off all the water. Here you can see me getting my boiled water, taking it to the sink where I've got my sieve and a bowl, and I'm just pouring that hot water and rice into it. Then I'm just going to drain it, leave it to the side. Now I'm just going to check my chicken mixture and see if it's at the consistency that I want. So you don't want it too watery and you don't want it dry. So I just added a little bit of water and let it cook for another 10 minutes. My potatoes have started to soften up as well. When it started looking like this, it was ready to layer. Now in the same handy that I boiled my rice in, I just gave it a good wash, and I covered the bottom of the handy with rice. I did about 3 big spoons of rice, and that was enough to cover the bottom and do my first layer of rice. I spread it across evenly and then added my chicken in. So I added a few spoonfuls of that chicken mixture. I didn't cover it fully, I just added it a little bit. And this is totally optional, but you can add cashew nuts So I had salted cashew nuts, which I washed, and I added a few sprinkles on top of the chicken. And then I started on my second layer of rice. So I'm just adding rice enough to cover the chicken. Just a few spoonfuls should be fine. Then I added more spoonfuls of chicken, and I'm just adding it on top of the rice again. So in this layer, I didn't add any cashews, but if you want to, you can. And once I covered that rice, I added more rice on top. And like before, you want to cover that chicken with rice. So I just did a few spoonfuls just to make sure that the chicken was covered. And once I was happy with that, I just added more chicken. And this is the last chicken I'm going to add. So this is my last layer of chicken. So I'm just getting whatever's in that handy and I'm adding it onto this layer. And I'm making sure to spread that chicken around the whole handy, covering the rice. So you can see me spreading it around. And then in this layer, I'm adding some more cashews. Of course, optional if you want to add it or not. And once I was happy with that, I added my last layer of rice. So this is the top layer. So I'm just going to cover that chicken with the rice, making sure that it's evenly covered. And just for a bit of colour, I'm getting food colouring. So this is just the food colouring I found in Tesco's. You do get the powder ones. I'm just using this one as it's just easier. And I'm just doing like a cute little design. And then I'm adding my garnish. So I'm just adding more coriander. This is just for aesthetic vibes. And a few more cashews. And lastly, I'm just going to add some lemon slices. This is lime. I didn't have lemon, but either or is fine. Now, main part, what you want to do is get tin foil, cover it. So I'm just putting it down on the handy and I'm using my lid to cover it and press it down. And I'm covering the top bit with that tin foil. This is just to make sure that the rice is cooked properly. So here I'm leaving it on the hob on really low flame. So the lowest you can do. And you want to leave it for 25 minutes only. 25 minutes and let it rest for about 10-15 minutes. I let it rest for 20 minutes. And when you open it, you'll find this rice. As you see, when I broke it, it didn't mush up. And when I'm mixing it, the rice falls apart so easily. It just flakes. I'm just giving it a good mix, making sure that the chicken and the rice is mixed evenly. And the colouring that I use with the food colouring is spreaded. And guys, this is so easy to make. It doesn't take that much time. Because usually my biryanis take hours, but this was fine. And it tastes amazing. So if you do try this out, let me know.